Hey guys, and welcome back to another edition of the Blaze podcast. Ed Kimberley and Stu Coles from Blaze TV as always. And our guest on this episode is former Blaze head coach Paul Thompson. Tomo, it's great of you to do this, mate. I know you've kind of been chomping at the bit to come on here for a while, so appreciate the interest, appreciate the love, and thanks for coming on.
No, I mean, Craig told me about it, where was it, about a week ago, and I said, yeah, I'd love to. It's funny, Ed, because, being in the game, and this is the first period of time within the last 26 years, I think, that I've not been employed and looking forward to, to the season coming and working for the season coming. So you have a lot of time to reflect, and I've been on in self-isolation since probably the middle of December when I got canned in Schwinnigan. So I have had some good reflection on that career, and obviously, and Coventry was the main part of that. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys about it today.
Yeah, it's crazy how much water has gone under the bridge since you last coached the Blaze. A lot's happened since then. A lot's happened since the move to Coventry. And I guess we're going to just pick that up. And Stu, I guess, do you want to go in near the beginning?
Yeah, we'll go. I think we'll probably best start right at the beginning. You're obviously involved in the team in Solihull. And that was part of that transition. How did that move come about from Solihull to Coventry?
Well, I think, financially, it's more Mike and Andy's side, but financially, to make it work at the B&L level out of Solihull was tough, with the crowds and the sponsorship and everything else. And this, lovely, shiny new arena, as it was then 20 years ago, was being built down the road. It was Mike Cowley that was the one that really wanted to say, well, if we're going to move to and be a substantial team with opportunities to win things, financially moving to Coventry is going to be a step in the right direction because of the attendance size, new city, blah, blah, blah. And so Mike really pushed that. Me and Andy, being Solihull boys, were, at the start a little bit hesitant about it. But, we made the move over in 2000, and it wasn't easy. I think the rink quadrupled at that point to what it was out of Solihull. There was a lot of pressure. We didn't have a big budget team for the first few years there, really, whilst we established ourselves. But I don't think the club ever looked back from that move onwards.
And you said it was tough. How difficult was it to establish, a new team, a new sport in Coventry? Obviously, coming from Solihull, there've been a few locals, but it's still a new place.
It was tough. I think, when I've been thinking about it, and like I said, you really don't, when you're in the game constantly, and I have been, for over 25 years, it's really tough to reflect and look back. But I have been, because we've all been having a bit of time on our hands, haven't we? So, and it was tough. We were all in full-time employment. And it was kind of written in the stars because I'd moved to Coventry with BT. And I was working in Little Park Street, and I used to drive past this arena, and I could see the stands going up. And I remember thinking, if only we could get this opportunity. And obviously, we got it and we took it. But it was real tough. And it was we didn't have anybody that, financially was going to come in and say, well, there you go, there's 500 grand, sort it out, establish a team, and away you go. The first year, I remember we were washing up in the co-op, and we were bagpacking in the co-op, and I remember Craig, what was his name? Craig, he left us. Oh, crying out loud. Hang on, look here. Give me 2 seconds. Craig Chappie, that was what I was thinking of. He said, Tomo, I'm not washing up anymore. He said, I've come here to play ice hockey. But we were doing anything we could to get out there. And we really did start, with the sponsorship side of things. Like I say, we were all full-time. And then I took a year's sabbatical out of BT, and I was the first one to really go full-time. And then Andy started working from the office, out of the co-op, if you remember. We had a shop in the co-op and the office in the co-op, and we started to, really establish the business, from there. But I tell you, it was a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice from the families, because I finished work at 7 o'clock. You'd run across and we'd be on the ice at 7:15. So it's, but good days, great days and fun, excitement, and to be in a new city and to create it and see it build.
And games back then, they were fun, weren't they? I mean, there was goal scoring left, right, and centre. No one knew how to defend properly, and then there was incidents left, right, and centre. So, I mean, it was a good time to be involved in the game.
Well, anyway, it was a different, it's a totally different game. I mean, we'll get onto it later, but I somehow came across a YouTube clip of, the final we won in the Grand Slam year in 2005 in Cardiff, and it was murder. I mean, you look back at them games now and you think, crikey, how did, what? I remember the team photo after we'd won the Challenge Cup, and I think 6 or 7 of the guys were in tracksuits being thrown out. And, but the game was what it was. It was a far more open game then. It was far more physical. And, a lot of clutching and grabbing and hooking and holding, which, they took out of the game a few years back to increase the speed. So it was fun. It was fun. And I remember that first home game against Milton Keynes, and we were really hoping for a big crowd. It wasn't a big crowd, but that was the start of the journey.
All those, the fun times, they came along with a lot of players who sort of became sort of icons of the club and sort of cult heroes. There's guys like Kurt Irvine, who sort of cemented himself as part of that sort of early Blaze folklore. Why do you think it was guys like Kurt who sort of resonated with the fan base?
Well, he was crazy. I mean, and I think the fans liked that. And you know what? He was a down-to-earth kid. And I think in them days, we were a lot closer to the fans to what players are today. And I don't think that's always the players' fault. It's maybe a social media thing now, and and everything. It's totally changed. Society's changed. But Kurt was, yeah. I mean, he was one of the early guys that came over with us from Solihull, and he had his own way of playing. He was fun to coach, and he really didn't give a monkeys about anybody. He didn't. And I spoke to him actually for the first time in probably 5 years about a week ago, and he's got 2 kids now. He's got his own business, and he's doing really well for himself. But he was a big early part of this club, no doubt.
And he was really part of the sort of that sort of culture that sort of became part of the Coventry side. There's always been a kind of hard-working blue-collar ethic that's kind of gone through the team, from 2000 all the way through to now, really. Do you think that's part of the culture of the team that's kind of stayed with it?
I don't know. Maybe it was part of the culture that we installed, and the way I wanted us to play. I mean, blue collar, hard working. The best clubs in the world are blue collar, hard working. They just have a skill set that's normally a little bit higher than somebody else. Mm-hmm. But that's the way we wanted to establish the team. It was a league that kind of incorporated that style anyway. At that point, that's the way it was. But I don't apologise for being blue collar, because that's what it's about. And I think the people at Coventry and the people that moved from Solihull that knew us anyway, they enjoyed that aspect of it.
And those early days, is there any sort of particular incident that kind of springs to your mind that you kind of remember from those first few years in the sort of formation of the Blaze?
Well, it was all about progress. I mean, I remember, Craig Chapman, who I mentioned earlier. I mean, we were in the first year in Coventry, if you remember, we were pretty head-to-head with Guildford up until around Christmas time. And Chappie went at home, and he went at home because he needed another 50 quid a week, and we couldn't afford to pay him another 50 quid a week. He'd come over on a low wage. We'd hoped the business had developed to a point where maybe we can top some of these guys up, and we couldn't afford to do that. And, he was probably was our best player at that point, and we lost our best player at that point. So the business was very tightly run, and Guildford, they were the big money team, them and Fife, and we were with them all the way, but we just couldn't, and I was pushing to keep these players, and I was devastated when Chappie went. So that was kind of the first thing that I thought, well, the more we build this business, and with Andy and Mike, the more we can create and the more we can, we can add to what we had. So, I mean, it took us 3 years to win the B&L, but every year we progressed. In the second year, we were runners-up, bridesmaids, but you have to remember, Tony Hand had a team in Dundee that was pretty much a Super League team. We weren't. And he was playing Super League wages to his imports, and we weren't even close to that. And and they were a great team, and we got close. And then in that third year, I think I brought Joel in, Poirier, we brought Ashley in, and we brought Lehman in. And and that took us over the line. And so it was a steady progress, as was the business at that point. And all along that time, the sponsorship base, because I used to do the sponsorship when I first, that was part of my job. We did everything. We all did everything. And our sponsors were a massive, massive part of the growth of this club, because they didn't just become sponsors, they become fans, big, big fans. And we had a lot of them. And then, Sally came in and kind of maintained that side of things. But we were all growing together.
And was it really those signings of progress that kind of turned that 2001, 2002 side, the Bridesmaids, into that championship contender? Was there anything else that kind of brought everything together?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, players get better, and we'd been, and if you look at kind of my career at Coventry, I probably built 3 or 4 teams in my time, but they all had a nucleus, and you add to the nucleus, and you keep the spirit, and we had some super guys that, when we won the B&L, we had some aging imports at that point, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. But they did a terrific job. Carpenter was another one we brought in, and he had that, that grit and determination, and he added something and took to our hockey club and brought us forward. But I think we were growing. I was growing as a coach. The players were growing as players. The fans were growing. The sponsorship was growing. We were all going the right way. And, winning's an obsession for me. And it's no different now to when it was then. And I wanted to do whatever I could do. And I mean, if Andy and Mike were on here now, they'd probably say I was the biggest pain in the arse going, because I pushed and I pushed and I pushed and I pushed and I pushed every day. And, and I am a pain in the arse, I know it, but it was fun it was, when I look back now, I look back with huge pride, with everybody that was involved, that took that forward, fans, sponsors, players, everybody, ownership, everybody.
Just before that sort of that first success came along, 2002, 2003, the Blaze actually pushed into the Super League and took part in the Challenge Cup tournament that year as kind of the 8th team. How did that come about? Was that you pushing to kind of grow the club, or was there something else that came along? How did that happen?
I think, I remember Mike ringing me from a board meeting saying, listen, we have an opportunity to jump into this competition. And if you remember at the time, to keep the business going and moving forward, we'd take any game. And I know that sounds terrible because you're asking your fans that, but for us to grow and bring in the player at the next level. I mean, what was it? We used to have the A46 challenge. I mean, it's some terrible competition. The best of British I like, because I'm a big believer in young British kids getting an opportunity. And I think I proved that in my time and in my career. But any games we could take on that could add to us growing as a business, we did that. And, that was a good learning curve for us playing them teams, and good learning curve for me.
And that season, that was kind of capped off right at the end. You won the B&L title on the ice of the reigning champions up in Dundee. How nice was that? And what do you remember of the bus ride home?
Oh, I mean, like I said, them days were a little different to they are now. Everybody's walking on here now with their protein shake and, and their 5 litres of water. Tasker was walking on with a McDonald's and 5 litres of lager, So it was, because it had been, I mean, we'd already won in Solihull. I mean, don't forget that. So we got that winning feeling. We'd been a really good team, and I think we would have won it the year it went bust, and then they went down to the bottom level, and we grew, and we grew all these young kids, the Peaseys and Kurt Irvines and people like that, Chartrand, and another thing, our crowd base never really got to see the best of Steve Chartrand, because he was coming down in his career. He was a magnificent player. He was a magnificent player for Solihull / Coventry, and so we had that winning bug. We had that, but we knew we just couldn't go and buy a team. when we started off in Coventry. We had to build a team. And but to answer your question, I was a nightmare. I think the last 10 minutes of that period, I was just strolling up and down. I remember Carpy shouting at me at one point, "Relax, we're going to win this, coach. Just relax," And because so much had been put into it to get to this point. And when we won it, I remember we went across the road, and I think Hilton blagged some champagne off of Andy or someone like that. And he was spraying that everywhere. And it was just a great bus ride home. It was, you think, wow, we've achieved the next level again. And it made you even hungrier. And then we went on to win the playoffs as well. And, that was big. But, like bringing Ron Schuder in at that point was big for us with that experience that Schuds had and stuff. I used to make him train twice a week, and I used to say, "Well, you get me 3 points on the weekend. You can train just on a Tuesday night," And I used to push you. I don't need a practice. We all need a practice run, But we did whatever it was. Shuggy and Task used to come down on a Friday night. Task could come off a building site, still be in his overalls, and Shuggy would be doing whatever Shuggy was doing. He was Mr. Entrepreneur, and they'd roll in on a Friday evening, practice with us, and like a breath of fresh air, And we were all in it. It's so different now, but we were all in it together, and we were all growing together. Just super, super memories, really were.
And you've had, over the course of your time with the Blaze and other teams, playoff victories, but that playoff victory on home ice against Cardiff, that must have been a bit of a different and a nice feeling.
Well, yeah, and it's the last game of the season. It's run different, now with the kind of Final Four event. But it was Schuder, wasn't it? Schuder scored, and we didn't know if they were going to allow it or disallow it. But it was a great way to end our BNL progression by beating out some really good teams in Guildford and Fife and Dundee, and we'd become the top dogs at that point, and we'd knock these guys out of the way, and and that's when. I think the following season was the start of the Elite League, and we felt we were ready to take that next step then,
And was that largely due to the double success in that final BNL year that you felt ready, or was it just the general progression, it felt right? What was the sort of the main motivation for making that step?
Well, I just wanted to take Coventry to the top, whatever that was. Obviously the financial side of doing that was, more Mike and Andy and Grant. Grant as well at that time. Grant was a big part of the business. So, but I didn't care. I just, we're going to go and win the next level, and we're going to go and win, and we're going to win, and we're going to win, and that was my mentality throughout. So I just wanted the next challenge. That's done. Move on. Let's take the next one. And we could never have afforded to go into a Super League scenario where the money was just too vast. But it was rejigged, and when we stepped into, and we took a B&L team. I took a B&L team. I was loyal to some players, and because of what they'd done over the period of the B&L days, and we took them into the Elite League, and we, I think we finished third that year, and we kind of pitted away a little bit, and it caught up with a few of the players, I think, and I knew what we needed to do to take the next step the following year, and that was tough because you had to, we always say, coaches, out of 22 players, and well, it wasn't 22 then, 8 like you because you play them a lot. 8 don't really care, and 8 hate you because you're not giving them what they want, and you can't be everybody's friend. And if I've got some great friendships from that point, some super, super, super lifelong friendships, but you have to make decisions what's right for your hockey club to move forward. And they were tough, and I had some sleepless nights over them. But I in my head, I knew, what I wanted to do and where we needed to go because I'd seen it firsthand, and how we get to that next level. So I think we only kept 6 players from that year. In our first, from that year onwards, and tough decisions, but evolution. That's the way it is.
It was a big step that first Elite League year. I think for not just for the Coventry Blaze, but for the landscape of British hockey. The Super League, as it was, had been dying. in terms of the amount of teams that, were in it who could afford to. And you said about, wanting to take the Blaze to the top, and, the financial side, you kind of divvied over to Mike and Andy, but it wouldn't have been feasible for a lot of teams, and a lot of teams died a death because of it. So going into the maiden Elite League season for the Blaze in 03-04, you've got a successful BNL team. That league itself is still really new. You knew you had success with that group. Did that kind of spur that decision on? You knew what you got in that group?
Yeah, I mean, I felt we could be competitive, at that level. And I'm not saying that we could have gone on and won it, because we weren't financially at the level of the other clubs that had dropped down from the Super League era, and who used to paying big money and imports big money and stuff. And we really weren't paying a lot of money. I mean, we really weren't. But what we were doing is we were building a program of success, and people want to be part of that. And we used every trick in the book because the school, the Coventry University and the business school have been a phenomenal part of the growth of the club, and still are. I mean, Danny uses them now, but we would do and find ways, getting wives' jobs and golf course memberships and free restaurants and everything that we didn't have to pay for, and that took a lot of work. We went out there, we were trudging the streets, and it was graft. I tell you, it was graft. It really was. But we were so motivated to make Coventry the best name in British ice hockey, and we did that.
There's quite a lot of people watching this that will have never seen Paul Thompson coach the Blaze team. So for a bit of context, you wrote a book about the early years that we've just covered, Benched. I'm sure you've probably got a box of copies knocking around if anyone wants one. I'm sure they can find them.
I think Peasy burnt them all, I think. Did a bonfire with them.
But yeah, that book finished right on the eve of 2004, 2005, the Grand Slam year. And you talked about in the last couple of pages, you had Adam Calder and Dan Carlson having just signed, who had come out of the East Coast. They were all stars. They just had a couple of cups of coffee in the American League as well. You talked about Andre Payet. I think you mentioned Neal Martin as well. It was a massive overhaul, wasn't it?
It was, and it was a massive summer, because we were trying to sell our club and bring in these players, on the back of, well, why wouldn't they go to a Nottingham? Why wouldn't they go to a Sheffield? Why wouldn't they go to a Belfast? Why wouldn't they go to a Cardiff? We were still a new name in the sport. And I remember a big part of that summer, the recruitment, the hours and hours and hours it took and does take. And I tell you, a shout out for every British coach over here. I don't think the fans realise. I mean, you've got 3 people doing the job of 1 anywhere else in Europe. And there's so much put on British coaches because they're the general managers and coaches, and book the hotels and book the buses and do the blah, blah, the ITs. I mean, they really, really do a hell of a lot and way more responsibility than what you have in Europe, where if you're the head coach in Europe, you coach the team, and that's your job primarily. So, but we were still building the business off the ice. We were still doing the commercial. I was working in a shop with Peasy. We were running a pro shop. I mean, and I'm not embarrassed by saying that. We were doing whatever it took to get to the next level. But funny story, I remember going after Neal Martin, and Neal had been a really good player in the Super League era with London, and then he'd gone off and had a couple of years in the DL to Schwenningen, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I put the phone, or when I was speaking to the agent, and he says, "You've got Neal," and I was like, wow. And he says, and you've got him, because he says he never wants you to ring him again. Because I must have rung the guy about 100 times. And and I was like, wow. And I don't know if it was Sally was in there with me or Andy, or at the time we had this little pokey office on the side of the shop. But I remember thinking, I've just signed Neal Martin. And that's how far the club had come at that point, and he didn't disappoint, did he?
No. Great player. Wonderful player. I think was it Wade Belak when he came over, said, "Where's this guy been hiding?" Because he only had 1 game in the American League, didn't he, with Portland? If I remember rightly, he had 2 assists in that 1 game, and it was just a size thing. He could skate rings around everyone, but the archetypical defenseman in the American League and the NHL back then was 6'4", weighed 230.
Yeah. I mean, them guys kind of grew up in an era where everybody was looking for size. And, the way the game's played now, which is all about speed and mobility and agility, Neal would have fitted right in there and probably had a far more stellar North American experience, career than what he did. He was a super player and a super bloke, and he did great things, as they all did that year. I mean, as everybody has done up until this point, it's just been growth, success. We were going all the way, and I get goosebumps now thinking about it. I really do.
You get players signed through kind of weird ways at times. I mean, you can go through an agent, land a guy through an agent. I've got this guy, might fit your needs. I think Chris McNamara came through Neal Martin, if I remember rightly, because you had a player drop out. And he didn't. He didn't. He came through an agent, Chris did. Did he? Okay.
Yeah, they didn't know each other at that point, even though they all worked together. Joel, him, and Martin, all work for the same business now. No, that wasn't the case. But I mean, a lot of the time, you sign players through friends, through players, who have friends, and this is a great place to play. Blah blah blah. But like I said, I thought I knew Calder. I got the year before, I'd got Jody all over, or 2 years before, and I kept my eye on because we used to, you've got to remember at that point, this is how crazy it is. At that point, getting top East Coast League players was an absolute huge thing. It was a huge thing. And I kept my eye, and I used to study all the leagues, as I still do. And, these names stay with you. And I looked at Calder, and I knew he was buddies with Lehman. And it took us 2 years to work on Coles.
Wow.
To get him in, and eventually, we got him in, and look what he did for our club. So unbelievable. But it was a fun year. I always remember Jane Buxton, Andy's wife, used to go and pick the players up, and we were in the I was laughing to myself about this the other day. We were in the cafeteria having a coffee, me and Andy and Mike, and Jane was walking, and used to be able to look all the way up kind of the shop. And Jane's bless her, she's about 4'5", and standing next to her was Andre Payet walking with her in this long leather duster. And I thought, oh my God, what a up here, But that was quite some thought. But I mean, Andre played a huge part in it as well. They all did. They were all exceptional. They really were.
Do you think that standard of player that you were able to bring in helped kick the league on a bit? Because again, it was 3 years old at that point. Everyone sees Coventry bring in an East Coast All-Star or two.
I still think the Sheffields and Nottinghams had them players. They did when you go back through them rosters. I mean, by this time, I think Luke had joined us. Luke was my assistant coach, and he was running the shop or something like that. He got in. And, so again, we were growing. Where it was, I was on my own a lot of the time to start with. We were growing, but we had, I remember the lines. I mean, our third line that year was as good as any third line I'd had in my whole time there, with Schlender, Cowley, and Tommy. Tommy, Peasy, Matty. We all talk about the superstars, and every sport talks about superstars, but they were the glue. They were the guys that I knew what they were going to give me night in, night out, and. They were as great for us during these stretch, this successful period as the Colders and the Carlsons and the Poiriers and and the Ashley Tates, and but we were one group. We were a real tight knit, and the icing on the cake was obviously Wade.
Yeah,
I remember being in, I'd done a deal with what the hell was the place called next door? We always to go after the games. The Orange House. Was it the Orange House?
Yeah.
Yeah, there'd be about 1,000 Blaze fans in there after games, and we'd have a little cornered area where we'd have some food that had been cooked about 3 weeks before. But, and I remember we had a deal in there where we could eat when we wanted, and the manager came to me the one time. I remember BT Williams, young BT.
Yeah.
And he says, "You got to have a word with one of your players." And he said, "Who?" He said, "This lad BT." I said, "Why?" He says, "He's having 3 mixed grills a day." And I was like, "Look, cut it down to 2, BT. All right, have a beer or 2." But but we all used to go over there, and again, that was a big part. I mean, prior to that, it was the place which is now the Harvester.
Chicago Rock?
No. Oh crikey, what was it?
Chicago
called?
Rock now.
No,
Old Orleans.
Old Orleans. That's
Yeah.
where we originally did the deal, and we used to, feed the players after the games there, and then obviously we moved into the Orange House after that. But they were unbelievable times, unbelievable season, and I remember that's the point I was getting to. So the Orange House and Michael Vrabel, was it Vrabel?
Yeah.
He came over with Pav, and I was introduced on a Sunday night after the game to his mum and dad, lovely people. His dad was telling me he's the happiest he's ever been, and I'm sitting there as I'm talking to him thinking, God, I'm firing him tomorrow. I've just signed Wade Belak, and nobody knows about it, And but when Wade came in, he totally bought in to what we're about. He loved what we were about. I remember him ringing me at the end of the season. Have you got my ring yet? Have you got my championship ring? Send it over. And you think how tough the games were there and how physical the games were there. I mean, we ran with 5D and 10 forwards.
Yeah.
I mean, they were tough boys then, I tell you. They're tough, mentally tough as well. And they'd play hurt. And different era. I'm not saying the guys aren't tough now, but it's a different toughness now.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree. I hadn't seen the playoff final when Tate scored the OT winner against Kudner. I hadn't seen that for years, and the club showed it. I don't know if you watched it as well, but
I did.
I think you mentioned it earlier how the game was so different. I think from the first puck drop, I was like, "Oh, that's a penalty." Oh no, they're carrying on. At one point, Poirier I remember this vividly. He got beat on the boards. The guy cut in laterally, and Joel managed to bear hug the guy to the ice from behind. He had one arm around his waist. Both players went down. Joel gets up, backhands the puck away to one of his teammates, and play carries on. So, it was mad.
We used to run lots of plays with picks and holds and hooks, and would use it to our advantage because you could get away with it at that point.
Yeah.
But there's something in that, and when you think of the amount of concussions that are in the game now, and there's really no fighting in the game anymore. And everybody blamed the fighting for the concussions, and there's a lot of concussions now because these guys skate like they've been fired out of a cannon, and there's no one holding up anymore. There's no one slowing down anymore. So there is that part of it as well. But no, it was a super year. I mean, to win all three, the cup in Cardiff, which was a great day, which started us on our way at the Elite League, and obviously then to clinch the league, and then Ashley's goal. Game-winning goal in the final against Nottingham, and it was a bit of a, and it just really didn't sink in because it was bang, bang, and we're on again. And I knew then we'd got players that other teams and other countries were taking notice of. So, we didn't keep them all because we couldn't keep them all. So we had to go again.
The Challenge Cup final. Let's because there's three big moments I kind of want to cover next. The Challenge Cup final. The London Racers thing in the playoffs, and then obviously the playoff championship. Because those two Challenge Cup final games, I think we rocketed ahead in the first leg at home, and then the second leg in Cardiff, there were bouncers on the door. It was crazy.
Yeah, their owner. But Paisley had tried to run into their changing room the last time we played there. I was threatening Romanov, who was a really good player, and I think that Nark, the owner of Cardiff, I mean, it was the wild west in them days, I tell you. They haven't got a clue now. And we walked in. They locked us out the arena. Bob Phillips locked us out the arena. We got in maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes before warm-up. And there was about 4 or 5 of these. I mean, they made Belak look small, these great big apes standing outside our changing room trying to intimidate us. And it didn't work, did it? So, but they came back at us hard. They were a good team as well. They came back at us hard, but we finished it off, and we won that first trophy. And we had a good night in the changing room afterwards, and some champagne, 2 bottles because Andy was generous in them days. And and we started off that that winning tradition in the Elite League.
Yeah. No, you mentioned they had a great team. John Craig had that year because he'd led the league in points and penalty minutes with Nottingham the year before.
Yeah. He'd come in and been a real impact and and a bit of a bully. But then the league changed. I mean, we had a tough team. Schulers, Belaks, McNamara's, Payets, and I think us and London at that point. I think we cancelled each other out, thank God, because it could have been a real mess. But there was some tough boys in the league. There really was.
You say it could have been a real mess. That playoff game, Paul, was a bit of a mess. A bench clearing brawl, pretty much. Eric Cairns down to his Under Armour. throwing punches at everybody in a blue jersey that came near him. That was like a slap shot. That's crazy.
That was Pisey again, right? If you go back and you watch the video, the puck goes into the corner. So from the bench, the far right hand corner, the far side, sorry, from where I used to stand, and the whistle goes for an icing, and Pisey pretends to hit Cairns, and skates away, and then Cairns, I mean, who was it? You know, you got to look under your car if this guy's coming after you. You know, he was a nasty piece, and he went after Pisey, if you remember, and then and the referee. Who was the referee on that night?
Was it Boniface? He was knocking around about.
No. The guy from Sheffield. Oh, crikey.
Kirkham.
No.
Oh,
it'll come to me in a minute. One of the senior refs at that point, and he kind of got aggressive with him. And he gave him a match. Then he was skating off. And he kind of, someone would have chirped from our bench, because a lot of chirping going on in these days. And he just jumped into the bench after Andre. And there was a massive melee and all the benches. And I just remember looking at Johnny Crook, thinking, get him out of there. Get him out of there. He's going to get killed. Little John was in the middle. What's going on? You know, what's going on? And anyway, out of all this, you know, Belak and Cairns just in the melee, they found each other. And then it kind of went, oh my word. Here we go. 2 heavyweights in the NHL. And, you know, they had their fight, and there was a few scuffs going on around that. And then it kind of broke up, and the linesman didn't get hold of Kenzie. Kenzie kind of threw him away. And I remember screaming at Cowley. Cowley was standing by their door. All right, my lover, in his Worcestershire Canadian accent, you know. And I was screaming, cows, move. And there was so much noise in there. I mean, the atmosphere, there is no better rink in the country than Coventry with him. There is none. Bar none. There is nothing like it when that place gets going.
Yeah. And
I was screaming at the top of my voice. I knew what. And Kenzie pops him straight as he walks out. And, you know, Russ doesn't know what's hit him. You know, it's kind of a blind side. So I threw a stick at Cairns. And as it's going through the air, I'm thinking, what have I just done? What the hell have I just done? Because if he knows it's me, I'm in trouble. There's no way I can match up to that. And it hit him on the back, and he just carried on. And what's funny, Jason Hewitt was injured. I always remember him having a red Mohican. He picked it up and threw it back at me, and we both started laughing, you know. But yeah, that was nuts. But I mean, when I hear some stories, I heard that the London races absolutely terrorised Nottingham that year, you know. But no one terrorised us, not with the team we had.
No. And then you go to the final in Nottingham, the plucky little underdogs, in some ways, against the powerhouse in their own barn. The upstarts is maybe a better way to put it. And that goal from Ashley Tate, I mean, stunning composure, because Kudner, he could not stop the puck. He was brilliant that night. He's a brilliant goalie in the Elite League.
But you know what, I don't think we were the underdogs. I mean, I don't think we'd lost a game since middle November.
No, yeah, no. I think
I think we went there, and it was a really good game. Don't get me wrong. You know, at that point, it was a really, really, really good game. And we talked. You know, we pre-scouted Kudner, and he'd come out and challenge. And I'd spoke to the players about this. If he comes faking, pumping, and and walk that train. I think Ash tried a little earlier in the game, and he wasn't so. He didn't come out. He wasn't so out of his net at that point, but. What a great! I mean, there's no better way to win in OT. It's just because the tension and everything about it it's a fantastic way to win and a fantastic way to finish a fantastic season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as the season progressed, it became more apparent. Oh, this is a special group. I mean, maybe Belak coming in often is nailed in as the turning point. But did you think that would be possible to achieve so much so early on at that level? I
thought we're going to be very competitive, from our first practices when the team came in. And if you remember, Neal Martin came in a bit late because we had visa issues with him. So he was a little bit late. But it was the chemistry of the club, and we had Big Shula back there as well. He was a physical presence as well. It was everybody within the club. They got on so well. I mean, you just couldn't do it now. I mean, the 4 Ps was probably played as big a part in that as everything else, because we'd all go back there, and me and Smalley would go back for a couple and then get told to bugger off, which was rightly so. We were the coaches, and and stuff. But I think you built up a camaraderie, a real camaraderie together. That the whole team would go out with their wives and they'd go to the 4Ps and Sunday night was their night out. I mean, we worked them hard, but Sunday night was their night.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about how you knew that during that season that there were players that were getting on the radar of other teams and other clubs in other countries. When it came round to the recruitment that following year, you must have known that you almost had an impossible task at that point. Trying to replace that team, must have been a challenge.
Well, halfway through, I was trying to re-sign guys, and I remember Coles going, no, because, it's a short-lived career. Everybody wants their idol to stay. And we were blessed that we had very, very good players that gave us a big chunk of their career in Coventry. And we were very blessed with that. And but it comes down to, pounds, shillings and pence at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to. But because we had such a strong group and we had that winning mentality and that focus of we're not going to stop going forward, people came back to us, DC, AC, they came back to us, and good players attract good players, and that's another thing. So, yeah, it was tough seeing them go. And when I think back about who should I have maybe offered or kept, and Schlender was one. I made a mistake with Schlender. I should have kept Schlender. He was perfect for the team. He was a perfect teammate. He could play all the way through the lineup. And going back a little bit before that, maybe Mike Shewan was another one.
Oh yeah.
So I don't have many regrets in doing what I do, because I did it within the best interests of the hockey club. But there were two players that I think could have continued with the Blaze, and there's a couple of regrets, because Schlen's played a big part in our club as well, as well as Shuey did in the early days and promoting it.
So, following the success of the 2004-05 season, you then got to have a crack at the Continental Cup the following year as part of the team's progression. How proud were you as a British coach to lead your team into that side?
Oh, we were, honestly, again, because that's, you're hungry for that succession and that next level. And really proud. And with a little tinge of sadness, that I remember when we got there thinking, and we went to the rules meetings and stuff like that. And I'm thinking about the players that had got us here that weren't there. There was a little sadness inside. I thought, it would have been great if we could have kept the group together. I mean, we couldn't repeat that because we didn't have $1 million to pay him. But it would have been great to take that team across there. And I thought we did really well. But at that point, when you look back, I mean, when you play the European teams, they're all 4-line clubs, and Britain was 3 lines. And on game 3, you play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You run out of steam. And I do think if we'd have been a 4-line hockey club, which nobody was at that point, over in the UK, we would have progressed further in the competition. But, it was a great experience. We had fantastic times with our fans. And again, it was the club moving forward.
Thinking about that competition in general over the 4 appearances that you had, have you got any sort of major reflections or key points from the Blazers' time over there?
I remember really losing it in Rouen because I felt that we had a chance to win in Rouen, and I remember giving it to Chubbs because he took a couple of lazy hooking penalties, and that really, I was disappointed because I wanted to get to that next level in the Continental Cup. But I think every experience that we had over there, the Bolzano one, I mean, they were just enjoyable, and I think it was something different for the club and something different for the fans, and and it showed that we went there 4 times, so we were doing something right because we were winning trophies to get there.
Probably one of the big highlights was the win against Salzburg. I mean, that must have been a big moment as taking that side and knocking off one of the biggest sides in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? We were scouted. We were scouted by their general manager, and I changed on the first game, and I changed all the systems for the second game. I remember him coming to me in the hotel, just shaking his head at me, but the boys were magnificent, and I tell you, Aalborg were a very good team at that point. They went deep in that competition, and they were spending some big money. And Hershey beat us 3-0, but we played okay. We played okay that game. They just had a little bit more. And again, the 4 lines to the 3 lines. But yeah, what a great night. You're right. You've just prompted me. What a great night that was. And, over it. I mean, and, Tasker's line of, you've just been beaten by what was it?
Plumber Tyler and a bouncy castle manager.
And a bouncy castle manager as he's smoking a cigarette, drinking a can of Heineken, which is, giving us a great name at the time. But no, it was super. It was a super period, the Continental Cup. It really was.
And that success was part of a couple of years for the club. The success in the league was huge.
Yeah.
Back-to-back trophies. But you managed to, 2006, 2007. Another great side, League Championship, Challenge Cup. Was that team better than the 2004-2005 team?
I've been asked this, time and time again, and it's tough to say. I mean, how can you get better than winning everything in front of you? But it was very good. It was very, very. And after the 2005. I was pretty miserable. We got that winning taste, and we got to the Challenge Cup final. We were 3-0 up in 2005, and we bottled it. Not every player. I remember Hutchie being outstanding that game, and he'd not won anything at that point, and I know what it meant to him. But I was pretty sour that, we kind of caved in, and we didn't make the Final Four. And again, it was, right, we'll bring back the people that we know that will take us there, and we'll rebuild. And, we rebuilt with, Sylvain Cloutier's, and Danny, was that Danny Stewart's?
Yeah.
Was the 2006-07?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, because we signed Morsey the year before, and Morsey was the one that gave me Stewie's name. I rang Morsey, I said, I'm looking for a rat. I said, I'm looking for a rat, a pain in the arse. I want some speed, guy that can play up and down the line. He said, and he rang me back the next day, he goes, I've got the guy. And he says, Danny Stewart. So I checked him up and I checked him out, and everything. He kind of ticked every box of the type of player that I was looking for at the time. I remember ringing Danny, and honestly, we got it done in 5 minutes.
Wow.
We got it done in 5 minutes. And, he used to, I mean, Danny, I think Danny thought that I never thought that much of him, but that's not true. Danny was a great player for me during that period, as was Morsey, because, their will to win, they didn't have to be top 6 players, even though they were top 6 players and they could play in the top 6. But, they would sacrifice a little bit of them to go down and play with a couple of kids on the third line. And that tells you that the professionals that they were and the type of characters that we were recruiting in our team at the time, that they bought into the team concept, not their individual concept. And, and they could have played, and did play all over, over the board. But, Cloutier was another big signing, real man. Simonton, Nazaruddin, Nader. We were pretty solid all the way up. I think that was the year Joel retired, didn't he? Joel Poirier retired, I think, that season.
Yeah.
And did we have Ashley? Had Sims poached him by then? I think he has.
Ash was we had Ash in 06, 07.
We had Ash in 06, 07. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, well, that was right, because I took Simsy into the GB programme and I lost my team captain in the summer because of it. Should have learned my lesson then. But that was a very good team. That was a very good team, and it was a very balanced team. And that was and Trevor Kony. I mean, good story from Trevor. I don't know if you know. I tried to sign Trevor before Nottingham. The year, not before Nottingham, before Newcastle, the year before, and for some reason I was offered him and I didn't go with it, and Newcastle ended up taking it. So I got hold of him at the end of the season when it was all over, because I thought he was one of the big reasons of Newcastle's success. And Newcastle were a rough and tumble, but they were a good team. They had good players as well. And he was flying from Newcastle to Heathrow, from Heathrow back to Canada, back to Edmonton. And I said, right, I'll meet you in Heathrow. He went, what? I goes, I'll meet you in Heathrow. And he was flying out. It was the Friday on the Saturday morning. I'll meet you there tomorrow morning. Check yourself out. come down. So he checked himself out. I had the contract. We did the deal. He got back on the plane and he went. I never told Rob Wilson that one because he'd probably give me a slap. But him and Throne. But yeah, I drove down the following day and
wow, and
signed Trevor that way because I felt that obviously we'd lost Lehman at that point, and he was a big part of our success coming from the B&L to the Grand Slam year, and I felt that we needed to add to our goaltending and both goalies, Lehman and Trevor, fantastic. Totally different styles. Where TK was so technical on his angles and very smooth, great on the puck, as Jody was. Jody was good on the puck, but Jody was a little more aggressive and would do what it takes to stop the puck. Trevor was very controlled, but two great goalies, and I think two of the better goalies in the Elite League area, and we were lucky that we had them both.
It was a question that appeared on social media earlier today, actually. If you had one, and you can only pick one, favourite goalie of the Elite League era, who would you pick? And so if you had only Koenig or Lehman to pick from, and you had to choose one, who would you choose?
That's a tough one, because they both had an unbelievable will to win and an arrogance to go with it, and a good arrogance. I don't mean a bad arrogance. An arrogance of doing whatever it took to win. I mean, Jody in a one-off game, especially if he thought he was going to get a 50 quid win bonus, he was unbeatable. But crikey, you know what? I'd toss a coin on that one, I think.
Wow.
There you go.
Because of what they both brought in the room as well, Jody would call guys out. Jody would stand up in the room and say, "You're not bringing it." And this is another thing, you don't get this now because we live in this very liberal world where, if you actually tell someone how they're doing and you say it the wrong way, it's deemed X, Y, and Z. And Danny Stewart was the same, and Lehman would just stand up and say, "Hey, get your arse in gear," and TK would as well. And we all pushed each other, and there'll be times, and I'd be going in to walk in the room, and there'll be a major Barney going on. I'm like, oh, perfect. And I just to close it and walk back out. They did my job for me, because of the will to win with that group was so big. And Simonton, I never mentioned him. He was a hell of a player as well. I got him in the corridor in Rouen when we played Herning Blue Fox. I said, I'll be ringing you in the summer. He says, well, what for? I said, I know you know Neil Martin. I'll be bringing you to Coventry. He laughed, and he did.
Sammy Naz was that year as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. I was going to bring Sammy back the following year, but I hadn't heard from him, and I'd heard rumours he was going to go to Denmark. I'd signed a player, and I can't remember who I'd signed. I signed a player, honestly, 12 hours before, and Sammy ran me. He goes, right, let's get it done, coach. I'm like, it was already done, But then he had a great few years in Denmark.
He did.
5 years. But that was a great couple of years, and we were. I think when I look back, I think Trevor went. His dad was really ill, and he went back and didn't play at all for a couple of weeks or practice prior to the playoffs. And I think we could have won 3 trophies that year, if he'd not have, because he wasn't with it. He wasn't, because he flew back over the night before and preparation wasn't great for him. But we'd take the double.